Hello again. I'm afraid this series has overstayed its welcome a bit now. I'm past the deadline that I wanted to be finished by, so I'm going to wrap it in the next few videos. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing tutorials, I just want to get out of this series because it's becoming a bit daunting having to do 9 hours of a video series just to get into it. So I'm going to be doing smaller little projects. So the lessons won't stop, just this project will. Hopefully you understand enough to develop this game into something a bit further. What we're going to look at in this one is just adding a few extra little features, and we're going to start with the crosshair. We'll probably put a frames per second counter in just to help you adjust your game later on, and we'll put an energy bar that works with the perks. So let's start with the simplest one, which will be a crosshair. So I'm going to jump into my level, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to draw, or rather put a crosshair object in. So I'm just going to draw it off to the side here. If I start with a circle, tiny circle, zoom in on it, get rid of the fill, and just, actually I'll convert that to a symbol. So I'm going to select that, convert it to a symbol, make sure it's a movie clip, let's call it crosshair with a capital because it's a class. Set the registration in the middle. We don't need to export this one. Press OK. Double click it to edit it where it stands. I'm going to zoom in again and do some lines. So I'll have a line here. Select it so I can manipulate it with numbers. Let's say the height of it is going to be 20. X position at 0, Y position at -10. I'm going to duplicate it, hold Alt and drag. Rotate it with Shift held in, and then just position it again. So the X will be 0, no it won't, the X will be -10, the Y will be 0. And there we go, we've got a crosshair. Back in the level, just make sure it's got an instance name, so I'm going to select it, call it crosshair with a lowercase c this time because that's a property. Possibly a bit thin, so just quickly edit it to have thicker lines. There we go, it's a bit easier to see. And it's called crosshair. Yep, so I'm going to hop to my level AS file now. Navigate down to the function that happens every frame. Here we go. And just where we update the HUD, I'm going to move the crosshair. So let's position crosshair. To do that, we'll just do crosshair dot x equals mouse x. So we're taking the position of the mouse. Crosshair dot y equals mouse y. Save that and test it, see what we have. And we have a crosshair there. Now there is one problem, the mouse is in the way, so let's fix that. And we'll do that every time the level begins. So up here, we've got two functions. We've got the init function, which is when the level is added to the stage, and we've got the cleanup function for when it's removed. So when we add to the stage, we'll make the mouse invisible, and when we're removed from the stage, we'll put the mouse back. And to do that, we hide the mouse. So we'll do mouse.hide. And you'll notice the code hint didn't pop up there. That's because we haven't actually imported this mouse class yet. In the cleanup function, we'll show the mouse. And that's just mouse.show. Before it will work, we have to import the mouse. So coming up to the top of the class, just going to import flash.ui.mouse. Save that and test it. You can see the mouse here when the game starts, when the level starts. You can see that we can see the crosshair but not the mouse. And if I let myself die, come on chips, faster. As soon as I die, the level will animate out and the mouse returns. So that works pretty well. Next up, we'll do a frames per second counter, and I'm going to make use of the score display here. In the level, we've already got a dynamic text field that we use to show the score. I don't know why it's not in this. Oh, I'm in the turret. That's fine. So here in the level, we've got a dynamic text field called output. Now I'm going to use that to show the frames per second. And to actually calculate the frames per second, I'm going to remember the time of the last frame. So I'm going to make a protected variable up here at the top of the level class. Protected var, and we'll call it time of last frame. Tim. Time of last frame of type, I think they're integers that this generates, and that's going to, in the constructor, be set to equal the current time, which we access by putting get timer. So we've got time of last frame equals get timer, which is a function that we at the moment don't have access to because we need to import something else. I need to rack my brain to remember what that is. I think it's utils, so flash.utils.getTimer, there we go. So by importing flash.utils.getTimer, we can use this getTimer function. And that basically tells you in milliseconds how long this SWF has been ticking. I think it's based on a time some way back in the 80s, I think it might be, if it's based on your system clock. That's not important. What is different, what is important, is the difference between this later on and the actual time. So we'll maybe start by having something a bit less than that. We'll just take 100 off. So start 100 milliseconds in the past. And then again in our looping function, we'll do this again where we update the HUD. Let's calculate the FPS. So we'll make a variable here quickly, var FPS, keep it lowercase. We'll make it an integer, so it rounds itself. Var FPS equals, and to get the milliseconds we're going to use getTimer minus time of last frame. So that will give us the time in milliseconds since the last frame. But we need to divide that, or rather we need to divide 1000 by that to get the frames per second. So there are 1000 milliseconds in a second, and let's say 100 frames have passed since the last frame. If we do 1000 divided by 100, we get 10, which means 10 frames per second. We'll update the output here. So that's at the moment got the score. I'll just show you a different way of adding text to that. If we type the name of the text field, output, and then do dot append text, that will add whatever we put in here onto what exists already. So I'm going to do a space and type FPS with a colon plus FPS. Save that, test it. And now our score at the bottom should also contain an FPS, which is wrong. Done something wrong. Oh, I haven't updated the time of the last frame. Update the time of the last frame to be the current time. So time of last frame equals get timer. Test that. And you can see we're hovering around the 24 FPS mark, and that's because our FLA is set to be 24 frames per second. If we crank that up a little bit, let's put that to 60 and see if it can maintain it. Notice everything's a lot faster now. It's trying, it's staying over 50, but the game's just far too difficult. Because we've based all the logic on frames, everything speeds up to match that, so that's probably not the best idea we've had. 30 is probably a safer option. And you can see we're staying around the 30 FPS mark. Probably get get a bit trickier when we have lots of things on screen, so let's see if we can survive for a while. If I can stay alive till there are lots of ships, the FPS will probably start to tumble. No, surviving fairly well even with all the explosions and doing a screen recording at the same time, so the game's fairly efficient there. We'd have to tinker the gameplay to let the player survive a lot longer before we saw a performance drop. So what have we got there? We've got a crosshair, we've got an FPS. Let's have an energy bar now then. So that means we're actually going to need to add energy to our turret. So I'm going to hop into the turret class. I'm going to make a variable for energy. I'll keep this public so that we can access it. Public var energy. We'll make it a number so we can add a small amount to it every frame. We'll have a constant for the maximum amount of energy a player can have. We really should have done that with the health as well. So we should have max energy as a constant. We'll say 10. No, we'll say 100. Let's make one for health as well. Const max health equals 10. Then in the constructor I'm going to set health to be max health, and I'm going to set energy to be max energy over 2. So start with half energy. Still working inside the turret, I'm going to make it regain some energy every time it's updated. So down in the update function here, after we've checked if we can fire or not, let's regain a small amount of energy. And let's just try adding 1 to it, so energy plus plus. We'll just limit that, so we can't have more than the maximum amount of energy. So if energy is greater than max energy, energy equals max energy. Save that class. Go to my level where we handle the perks. Now, where you choose to do this is up to you. It might be a better idea to let the turret be responsible for allowing itself to handle perks. I'm just going to code the logic of it straight into the level here just to demonstrate it. So I've got this add perk bit here. But I only want to let that happen if you have enough energy. So this is not going to happen unless you've got enough energy. So let's say here, if, and we'll comment it first, if the player has more than 20 energy, so if the player dot energy is greater than or equal to 20, then we'll add a perk. But we also want to deduct some energy, so deduct 20 energy. Problem is here, I've just realised we're not actually checking to see if it's a legal perk just yet, so I could have done this in a better place. Could do it in here. Yeah, let's cut that. I'm going to cut that out. So make sure that it's a legal perk first. My logic's different here than it was in the final game, so we're going to have the same if a few times. Not ideal. So I think, sorry, just bear with me. We could make add perk return true or false based on whether it's actually put a legal perk on. That could work. Yeah, let's do that. We'll put the if back. And we'll say if add perk. So if it was successful, And we'll move this comment here. So if we successfully added a perk, we'll take 20 energy off. So add perk now needs to return a boolean. So we'll have to return true instead of breaking here. So instead of the break, we'll return true. I'm going to replace the other ones with that. Again, there are better ways of doing this. I just want you to understand the logic of what we're getting at, really. If we get through that switch, we want to return false. And I'm going to move this. I'm going to wipe the array somewhere else. I'm going to wipe it up here. Okay, so I've adjusted the logic a bit there. There are infinite ways you could have done that, just as long as you understand what I'm doing. When they've pressed 3 keys, if they have enough energy, try to add a perk. If they added a legal perk, deduct some energy. And after all of that, regardless of whether it was a legal perk or not, we're going to wipe the key array. So they can never have more than 3 keys in the array. You won't be able to have a visual representation of energy yet, will you? So let's make one of those. I'm going to go to the game flash file, to the library, and I'm going to duplicate my health bar. I'm going to call it energy bar. Press OK and edit it. Zoom in a little bit. Oh, it's gone. Select something and zoom in. It's all locked. Unlock it all. Hide the mask. Zoom in. I'm going to change this colour to be blue. Let's get rid of you and have a blue colour for the energy. Just change the way the gradient flows. Other way. Lock it all again, make sure it's visible. So we now have a health bar, an energy bar that's blue. Good stuff. Let's drag it onto our level. Make sure you're working inside the level. Put the energy bar in, align it with the health bar, drag it along. Have a little tip next to it. I'm racing through this, I realise, but it's bonus content for a reason. I'm not really teaching you anything new here. So we've got an energy bar and a health bar. Let's make sure the energy bar has an instance name. And I'm going to call it energy bar with a lowercase e because it's a property. Properties start lowercase and then go into camel case. Back to the level. Find the update to the HUD again. So where we update the health bar, we'll also copy the logic but apply it to the health. We'll apply it to the energy instead of the health. Energy bar dot go to and start math dot round the player dot energy over 10 times. Hang on a sec, let's have a think. That shouldn't be over 10, that should be over max, the player dot max energy. Arg. We use 10 because the player has a max of 10 health. That should say the player dot max health. And that will get the right percentages. Let's save that. Hopefully we don't have any errors. Go to the game, we should have a visual. You can see that the energy fills up there, and when I use a perk, 20 of the energy goes. I think the regain energy a little bit too fast there, so I'm going to edit it slightly. Instead of having energy plus plus, I'll do energy plus equals 0.3. So regain a smaller amount of energy there. And you can see the energy bar goes up slower this time, so I should be able to use all that. And when I don't have enough energy, I can't use the perk. That's good. It's getting a bit more challenging. I'd argue it's too challenging at the moment. I'm just mashing multi-shot here, and I'm still getting battered. Yeah. It's coming along though, it's nearly a full game. What else did I say I was going to do? I think that's it. So we've got the crosshair, the frames per second, and the energy display and logic. What I want to do next, I'll probably finish my own version of the game, upload it to Congregate and show you the process of doing that. So you're familiar with how things are placed on Congregate, how you use the API so you can have top scores, and if you're lucky enough, badges eventually. Got to make a very good game for that though. And show you how to put icons and so on, so it'll be on there for the world to see. We also need to do a loading bar at the front, so we did save a place for that. If we have a look, we've got this for a loading screen. So they're my two goals for the rest of this. I'd like to get it finished in the next 2 days. So tomorrow might do the loading screen, the day after we'll do Congregate, and then I can move on to the next series and we can start making smaller, equally useful projects that newcomers to the series can jump into without being lost. Thanks for staying with me though, if you're one of the dedicated few. See you later.